All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join me today for the free Journalism to PR webinar. Um, I'm so excited that you took out time in your busy schedule to just learn more about this transition and what it might mean for you wherever you are in your journey. And I hope this is valuable information for you. All right. Excuse me. A little bit about me. So my legal name right now is Christine Peck, Paik, which is actually just one letter different from my maiden name and my TV name, which was Christine Park back in the day. I was an anchor reporter for the ABC O&O in Fresno, California for 15 years. So PR really is my second career. And I think it's proof that you really can do something new and reinvent yourself. So I'm curious about you. So type in the chat your current role or journalism background right now. I'll take a second and you can just type in the chat real quick. What are you doing right now in journalism, or currently what is your role? News producer, multimedia journalist, student, awesome. Investigative reporter, news producer, awesome. I love that we have a wide variety of folks in here because really journalism is multifaceted. And we're going to be talking about some of the different skills that you bring as a journalist to a potential career change. So what if I asked you, what if you could make more money? What if you could take time off when you wanted to? Sweeps be damned, or, you have to swap with your coworker because you got Christmas and they want Thanksgiving. What if you could be appreciated and respected for your contributions, all while still doing the things you're good at and enjoy? And I think most of you would answer like, yeah, I'd be interested. And that's why I'm here today. But I really want to address this because so many journalists, including me and maybe you, um, struggle with leaving the field that they love, that they're passionate about, and that really was their dream job at one point. And maybe it still is your dream job. And I have to put this out there because just because you're leaving your dream job doesn't mean you failed at your dream. Okay. It just means you get to discover another one. And I want you to sit with that a little bit because there is kind of a mourning period because as journalists, our identities are so wrapped up in what we do. It literally becomes who we are. So the second question I get so often is like, how do I know I'm ready? How do I know it's time to leave or time to move on? And so these are some of the questions that I ask my clients and my coworkers to really reflect on. Like, is the stress and pressure of my current job affecting my physical and mental well-being? Do I feel fulfilled and challenged in my current role? Am I still passionate about my work or just going through the motions? Do I feel valued for my skills, acknowledged and appreciated? And am I envious of others in different careers for whatever reason? Is it more pay, prestige, flexibility, all the things that as you progress in your career, you've come to value. And that's okay that it's different from when you started in journalism. So these are some questions that you might want to sit with as you think about whether you're ready to move on. But you're here because you are interested and curious about moving on. Maybe some of you have already started the search. But I want to first affirm you and your skills, that your skills that you may take for granted every single day are desired and needed and actually respected outside of news. So you might think, oh, of course, I'm a storyteller. Of course, I understand how the news media work, but to so many people outside of news, it's a mystery. So the fact that you're bringing your experiences and expertise as a former journalist is extremely valuable. So you are an expert at media relations. You know exactly what a crew on deadline needs. You have storytelling abilities that translate into the PR world. If you end up moving within the current market that you're in, or you have maybe some national connections via your network or your station, you have existing connections in the media that people literally pay for. We pay for lists of journalists. Strong writing, you are writers, you are content creators, right? These are kind of buzzwords that exist in the PR world that like you're like, oh yeah, well, that's what I do. I create videos, I create stories. That's content creation. And many of you also have social media savvy. I saw in the chat we had like a digital producer. Um, you know, even if you're on air or even if you're producing, newsrooms have us doing so much that you may have social media expertise as well. And this is key. All of you know how to complete projects on a deadline. Um, and, many of us would rather like die than miss a deadline. And when it happens, we beat ourselves up about it. But all of these things are desired skills outside of news. So what I found though, some areas of growth that journalists may not be experts at are the areas of marketing and advertising. So, public relations exists in many organizations, but sometimes there's overlap with marketing and advertising because if we're going to say a corporation, right, what they do is sell products, right? So the marketing and advertising is intertwined with public relations, and you may not, as a journalist, have experience with that. Some of the PR planning, like what's a PR plan? And so many people new to PR kind of come to me and they're like, help me, I don't know where to start. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Some of the networking and office politics, I don't know, you guys may have office politics that you're navigating in your own newsrooms, but that was a learning curve for me, the networking and office politics, not just inside my workplace, but outside in professional organizations and kind of connecting with others in my field. Journalists are innately competitive, right? You're not sharing resources, you're not sharing information or stories with others, but in other fields, we definitely do. The concept of monitoring and measuring your work, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. Some, PR positions ask that you have knowledge of how to update websites, which some of you may already, but other digital tools like Canva, ChatGPT, Sprout Social, some of those things that PR people use. And then, of course, industry-specific knowledge and experience. But you guys are reporters. You know how to learn quickly about any topic. So that's an advantage. So then what are hiring managers in PR looking for? Essentially, they just want to know, can this person do the job? Do they have the skills in the job description I listed, right? Is this person a good fit for my needs and for my team? And then how much training and handholding will I have to do? So this is your action plan. If you are just getting started and are starting your job search, you should be going through these 4 steps, right? Step 1 is to gather your best work, and that includes writing and any story or examples, social media posts. Step 2, you're exploring potential jobs and trying to kind of narrow down based on your skills and experience what types of jobs you should be looking for. And step 3, I highly encourage you to sign up and complete a class in a growth area that I mentioned, for example, marketing. And step 4, you're updating your resume into terms that hiring managers outside of news can understand. So if you have my ebook, I talk a little bit about that, but let's go through each of the steps. So what are your work samples? What would make sense if you're applying for a job and somebody outside of news is like, "Oh, I'd like some work samples." So this could include social media posts, any videos you've done, website articles. So a lot of times you're having to write for multiple platforms. It's not just the package that airs or the VOSOT that airs. You're having to break it down for the website. Any, packages you've done, especially on in-depth topics, um, especially if it's related to a field that you're applying to or interested in. So for example, one of my clients was really interested in schools getting into education. And so they had a couple packages that they showed related to stories they've done on schools, local schools. Any in-depth interviews you've conducted with experts, like say you want a hospital job, a media relations hospital job, and you've conducted interviews with doctors, for example. If you're on air or producing or coordinating, have you done town halls? Have you done telethons? Have you done parades? Any of these like large scale things that you've had to organize, special coverage included. But a lot of times, most organizations, they will ask for examples, especially if media relations is included. Um, Samples of press releases you've written. Obviously, as a journalist, you're not writing press releases, you're receiving them. However, because you receive so many, you are able to study the ones that got your attention and kind of practice writing in that style and structure. The next step that you're going to want to do is explore potential jobs, right? Where are you looking? If you do not have a LinkedIn account, you should do so immediately. And Indeed, as well as LinkedIn, have great job notification functions. So you should be signing up for automatic job alerts based on keywords. And just Google that. You can say, how do I sign up for job alerts in LinkedIn Indeed? And then you can do so based on the job titles that you're interested in. Public Relations Society of America. This is the premier PR association, professional association. So for example, there's in news, you guys have, Society of Professional Journalists or RTNDA, some of those. PRSA is the national organization for PR, and they have a jobs board as well. Also, if you're interested in things in public service, including cities, counties, governments, police, fire, school districts, things like that, those are posted on government jobs. The reason why for the alerts is with this job market, literally something is posted and there's like within 24 hours, 100 applications are already in. So you want to kind of get the jump and be among the first to apply. That's where the job alerts really help because they come right into your inbox. So how do you search for jobs? What are the types of jobs out there? So this list is kind of on the left side, some of the roles or jobs in PR, and on the right side are the different titles. And so you can combine left side with right side in searching. So for example, you could do, press secretary or public relations associate, right? Media relations specialist. So you're searching kind of the left side and the right side. Now, you're wondering kind of like, well, how do I know what I have the experience for? Or how do I, you know, because some of these on the right side obviously are like requiring a lot more experience. So, for example, vice president, senior director, those may require, 15, 10, 15, 20 years of experience. But some of the more entry level, like coordinator, technician, specialist, strategist, those are lower in terms of required experience. And then kind of in the middle are like manager, officer, sometimes director. I do have to tell you my experience. I had 15 years of news, as I mentioned, and I went straight into a director role in school public relations. So I did kind of a search for a current job. I combined media relations and specialist. So here are the qualifications that came up for this media relations specialist that I think many of you would be interested in. This is for a hospital, by the way. Seasoned professional with strong media relations skills, right? Bachelor's degree in journalism communications and at least 5 years of experience in media relations or communications. So our student on here might not necessarily qualify, but many of you have about 5 or more years of experience, right? So don't let some of this scare you. You must have a track record of effectively managing media interactions, pitching stories. You are the media, so you know how to manage the media and pitch stories, and working with executives to craft effective messages. Craft effective messages is just writing. You should also have excellent verbal and written communication skills, as well as an understanding of the media landscape. Again, that's you. So then when you go to the responsibilities, I underline some of the things that you as a journalist may really shine, Again, media interactions, crafting messages, pitching stories, maintaining relationships with media contacts, press releases, media advisories, right? You're just switching your perspective. Instead of the one receiving the press release, now you're the one sending them. Now I'm going to show you what I do for every single job that I apply to be able to customize my resume for every job. If you're not doing that, you need to do it. And I know it sounds like a pain, but with ChatGPT, it is super easy. So what you're going to do is you're going to go into the qualifications of the job. So for example, this media relations specialist job. You're going to paste it into ChatGPT, then go to the responsibilities for the job, copy and paste that into ChatGPT. Okay, so right now you just have that in there, but the prompt that you're going to give to ChatGPT is from the following job description for media relations specialists. What are the top technical skills and areas of expertise needed to have an advantage as a job applicant submitting my resume? Okay, so this is the prompt that you put into ChatGPT, and below that, I copy and pasted the qualifications and the job description for media relations specialists. So let's see what it generates. Okay. So the things in bold, right? Media relations skills, strategic thinking, content development, media monitoring, relationship building, social media proficiency, event coordination, and media kit development. Those are some of the top skills then you should be incorporating into the top of your resume. So I'll show you mine. This section, key skills and expertise. You're going to put some of those top skills that are required for this job, if that makes sense, because that will automatically pick up those keywords on the ATS or the applicant tracking system that hiring managers use to just screen the resumes, right? To make sure that you might meet the minimum qualifications. And if you're not doing this, that's a likely reason you're not getting past the initial resume screening to get that first interview. The next thing I would do in ChatGPT is based on the above job description for media relations specialists, improve my resume by customizing my work experience to better fit the qualifications of this job. And then you would paste your resume work experience here, and they would provide suggestions to improve your resume. Again, this is all to make sure that you get that first interview and get past the applicant tracking system. ChatGPT is great at helping with this because it is hard to customize your resume every time. And right now, companies are using AI to help them. So why not use AI to help yourself? So that was a really quick kind of overview. And then next, step 3, you're going to want to take classes to update your skills. Remember, we talked about some of the gaps that journalists might have, marketing or social media or project management. There are free classes on HubSpot to get digital media certification or social media certification. These are, I would say, maybe 6 hours of your time. So maybe setting aside, an hour per weekend or, every night, just depending on what you have available. And then once you get the certification, you can add that to your resume and it fills in the gap where maybe a hiring manager's like, oh, they don't have any marketing experience, but, they have that education. For more in depth, you can go through Google. This is paid. They give you 7 days free, but these classes can't really be finished within 7 days. So it's $50 a month to get either, a digital marketing certification or project management certification. In my opinion, that's a bargain, $50 a month. You may need it for 3 months, The other key skill or class, if you aren't already familiar with Canva, nearly all PR practitioners are learning Canva. For example, I created this slide deck on Canva, and you can get a free account, and it's really like learning the basics of, graphic design and slide presentations. You can't believe how many slide decks you're going to have to make outside of news. Okay, then the step 4 in your action plan is to update your resume. This is huge. I I started this session by talking about how your journalism skills translate because, again, you have valuable skills. The key is like the way journalists speak is not the same way as people in PR or HR speak. And so if you've read my ebook, you saw some of these ways to translate your news terms into more understandable PR terms. So for example, breaking news is crisis communications, producing, project management, assignment desk, managing teams, storytelling, crafting narratives, video editing, content creation, meeting deadlines, timely execution, reporting, writing, developing key messages, copywriting, public speaking, being a spokesperson or a presenter. I saw an MMJ on here. Integrated communications or PR generalist basically means you do it all. Multimedia, creating digital content across platforms, interviewing, key opinion leaders in various fields, experts, right? And doing research for your stories is data analysis. So here's an example of a MMJ reporter slash producer slash digital content reporter, of course, because you do it all, right? So this is how their resume started out. It was just simply 3 bullet points: produce 5 p.m. newscasts, shoots, writes, edits, breaking news, content creator for digital and social media platforms. Okay. While you, as a journalist, you look at that and you know what it entails to put an entire 5 p.m. newscast together every single day, on time, on deadline. But the hiring manager has no idea. That means nothing to them that you produce the 5 p.m. newscast. So knowing some of those keywords and how it translates, instead of producing the 5 p.m. newscast, we said this person mastered project management and collaboration, ensuring the timely execution of daily newscasts by multiple team members. Okay, so now I'm somebody in HR or I'm in PR and I'm like, oh my gosh, this person can handle managing, juggling, this huge project that I need them to be in charge of. Shoots, writes, edits, breaking news. Okay, I don't know what that is as a hiring manager, but if you tell me you enhance crisis communications by leading rapid response for emerging situations, ensuring effective, accurate, and coordinated communications and key messages during crises, I'm like, okay, this person is level-headed. They'll know what to do when something happens, right? And then content creator for digital and social media platforms. This person spearheaded innovative multimedia content across multiple digital platforms to deliver high-quality storytelling for audiences. I know it sounds right now like a lot of gobbledygook or like some kind of fluff, but I'm telling you, this is the language that they're looking for. In addition to this, you would add any sort of measurements. Like, so for example, if you, as a 5 p.m. producer, contributed to the increase of ratings, or audience, you would put that much, improve, audience by this many, you know, because we're not in the habit of measuring our work necessarily. That might be a challenge for some of you, but at least get your resume language translated. Okay, so now that we covered the action steps, I want you in the chat, out of the 4 action steps in the plan, type in the chat what you can commit to doing in the next 2 weeks. Is it 1, start collecting some of your work samples? Is it 2, signing up for job alerts? Is it 3, signing up for a free class? Is it 4, revising your resume? Or 5, all of the above? Are you like gung-ho, I'm ready to go? Just take a moment, type in the chat what you're ready to do right now. I love it. Go, Elizabeth, all of the above. Yes. Thank you, Danielle. 1 and 2. Esmeralda, good job. 5. Henrietta, 3 and 4. Yes. I think I love this because as journalists, you're action oriented. And so now that you know the next steps to take, and you're committing to doing them, you're taking charge of what happens next. So congratulations. Okay. So what even are you getting into? Because PR is like kind of this big general big thing out there. I'm going to define PR for you so that I want you to have a strong idea of what you're going into. So what is public relations? So PR is really about shaping public perception through the messages that you're putting out and the relationships that you're creating between whatever organization you're working for and whoever they're talking to. So if you're, for example, Apple, right? Their PR team, their audiences include shareholders, right? Employees, as well as their customers. That's a gross generalization, but I'm trying to get you thinking because as journalists, we just kind of put our messages out there, right? And sometimes it feels like, oh, it's one size fits all. But PR is very specific as to what audience you're trying to talk to and shaping that message. So PR aims to inform, okay, which as journalists, you know how to do, but also influence, right? Because you're working on behalf of either a client or your organization. And your organization is working towards something. So your messages as a PR specialist is helping them achieve whatever they're working towards. And that could be a vision, that could be a mission, that could be sales goals, right? In PR, as I said, the audience is very targeted and you're really focusing on those specific to your organization. So it's not like, imagine like a blanket. You're not just putting out a blanket of information. It's very much like a string, that you're connecting to specific audiences. So that in general is PR. Some of the key differences from news that I've experienced is one of the ones that journalists initially may struggle with, especially if you're writing for broadcast all the time, is that the transition is to more formal writing. And this could be communications for an executive, updating audiences on a crisis, for example, doing presentations like this on slide decks. Another big thing is that PR is slower paced for your projects when it comes to deadlines. So it's not a 3-hour deadline, it's a 3-week deadline, right? And learning to pace yourself and spread your work out can be challenging. And I would say PR is not necessarily easier than journalism. There's a lot that goes into it, and especially if you're starting out, there's a learning curve, but it can be very fulfilling, values-driven work, which is why I encourage you when you're doing your search, you're looking for things that you're interested in. Are you passionate about medical breakthroughs and doing those health watch pieces, right? Then are you looking at, research institutes, hospitals, right? Cancer Society, things like that. And your work is having that impact. With PR, sometimes the work goes home with you. And this goes for some of the higher level positions like directors, senior directors, VPs, things like that, where now you're switching your brain to strategizing. You're constantly thinking like, what's my next move? And that kind of mental weight can go home with you. And you may be responsible for other people and you're managing other people. And so that's a little different. And you're not a journalist anymore. So you're not reporting on anything and everything that's happening in your organization. You're strategically releasing information and sharing information, but you're never sacrificing the truth because that is vital in maintaining your credibility as a PR specialist with other journalists. So the main difference is that PR is proactive. You're making things happen, whereas journalism is reactive mostly, where you're covering things happening. And that simple but huge switch in your mindset is what will help you in your transition to PR. In fact, by attending this webinar, you're already adopting the PR brain because you're doing research, you're learning information before taking action. And that's what PR folks do all the time. Because one, PR always requires planning. Two, as I said, PR requires different messages and different tactics. So messages I told you are like basically the writing and whatever your organization is saying. And the tactics is how you're reaching the audiences. That could be, social media, your website, a blog, a newsletter. Those are tactics. So it requires different messages and tactics for multiple and specific audiences. Large organizations have literally like a specialist for each tactic. It's crazy. I don't personally, I only have 3 or 4 people in my office that focus on communications, but some teams have like dozens. So it depends, like if you join a large organization or a small organization. Like a small organization, you may be it. You're a one-man band, which actually, resonates if you're an MMJ or you have MMJ experience. You do it all. And difference number 3, I talked about measuring your success. In PR, everything's measured to determine whether you were successful and whether you keep doing what you're doing. So let me explain. Oh, one more thing. In journalism, you ask questions to get to the bottom of the truth. Sometimes the person you're interviewing isn't honest or being forthright. So you kind of have this like, oh, I'm going to get you, right? In PR, especially when you're starting out in a new industry, you want to have a rookie mindset. You're starting from scratch. You don't know everything, and you're asking questions to understand, right? I've had a few journalists who transitioned who came off like super aggressive, and like the people in their new office were like, dude, like, what's going on? Like, why are you grilling me? So you're going to want to kind of soften that approach if you're known to be kind of super aggressive in your in your question asking or your approach with people. They're on your same team, right? So you're asking questions to understand, not to prove them wrong. So that's one thing. And the other thing, I mentioned this earlier, is the kind of the breaking news aspect. As journalists, you're like, oh my God, I've got this juicy tidbit. I gotta get this out ASAP. Uh, no, when you're in PR, you're on the other end of it now, and you're delivering news strategically and thoughtfully, and you and your leadership are deciding when and where you release that information. So for example, I'm dealing with, a boss that was put on leave. And as soon as we found out, we didn't just like release it, right? Haphazardly. We did it in a thoughtful way. We're like, okay, who needs to know this first? We told them. Who needs to know this second, and so forth. How are we going to release this? Is this going to be a press conference? Is this going to be a press release? Are we going to do an on-camera thing, or is it just going to be a statement? So all those things that right now as a journalist, you're on the receiving end of, I've been thinking about this and planning this for a week. Okay, so what does PR planning look like? And this is just going to be a really quick crash course because we're going to come up on time. If you're watching the clock, I had initially said 45 minutes, but I think we might go a little bit longer than that. Maybe go to 9:50 or 9:55. Um, so if you need to hop out, that's okay, but I would love for you to stay. Um, Step one is researching and gathering data. So you don't do a news story without knowing some background information. The same with PR. You don't go and start doing PR without researching and gathering data. Step two, you're always checking with, a supervisor or like a PR plan. There's a lot of meetings. Um, to make sure your work is meeting priorities and goals of your team and your organization. Step three, you're going to want to work on building those relationships and credibility because sometimes you're seen as an outsider coming in, right? And then four, you want to create a plan for everything that you do. And here's kind of a breakdown. So what does research and gathering data in PR look like? So some of it may be, it could be Googling articles, right? Which is what you may already do. But there's all these other ways to gather research and data in PR. You could do surveys, you could do focus groups, you can interview people, have meetings. It could be random conversations. It could be gathered from social media comments. There's a lot of areas where you can gather data to inform, like, okay, how do we reach these people, or what do we do for this plan? Step two, I talked about the importance of meeting with your supervisor. Um, Sometimes when you start a PR job, you're like, oh my God, they want me to do all these things all at once. And like, I literally only have this many hours in my workday. It can feel overwhelming, as it did with me when I first started out. I didn't know what to do first. They're like, we need a video for this, we need that. So what I did is I sat down with my boss and I'm like, look, like I want to do all these things eventually, but what are like the top three priorities so I can focus on those and do them well, and then we can move on to the next thing. Step three, I talked about fostering relationships and building credibility once you're in PR. And that'll go internally in your organization as well as externally to some of the people that the audiences you're trying to reach. So, you're going to want to be visible. You're going to want to share your own expertise. And again, despite that imposter syndrome, remember that you have skills and you will be hired for your skills. So that may require training staff and leadership on media relations, or training staff and leadership about how to be a good spokesperson or give good sound bites when they're interviewed, right? Um, there's going to be a steep learning curve where you're learning the lingo, and you're going to want to subscribe to, industry publications. So for example, if joined a public school district, then you're going to want to, read up in Ed Week and things like that. Lean into your expertise. Remember that you're an expert in some of the skills that you bring, and start creating plans, which I'll show you. And then externally, they're going to start wanting to see like, oh, we hired this person, for example, for media relations. So are they generating positive press for us? You're going to want to start joining professional networks. I mentioned PRSA is one. And eventually, they're going to want, some organizations really put a lot of value in awards. And so, like education, for example, we submit for awards every year because they love to kind of tout that, and it's part of your brand building. So what's a PR plan, or what's a communications plan? So there's these steps, right? So first, somebody will come to you and say, we need a PR plan to, get all of our audiences to take this annual survey. Okay. So you're like, okay, well, let me research that. In the past, how many people have taken the survey? Oh, only 1,000, right? So what's our goal this year? Well, there's 5,000 people in our audience. So let's try to get from 1,000 to 3,000, right? So you're creating like very measurable goals, right? And who are we reaching? Oh, well, our audience consists of staff, you know, families and students, right? How are we going to reach them? Oh, well, our families like they like email or they like texts. They like to receive texts. Or our students, they're on social media, right? And then how will you evaluate or measure your success? Well, I'll know that if we move the needle from 1,000 people to 3,000, we were successful. That's what a plan is. So here's an example. I mentioned the you know, engagement survey. We want all these people to take this survey. Okay. It could be a customer engagement survey if you're working for a corporation, or it could be a hospital satisfaction survey if you're working for a hospital. Again, that research is really how many people participated last year? Where do we want to see that increase? And what means of communicating are available to us? Is it email, text, social, website, etc.? So the overall general goal is to increase survey participation. And then your objective is this is the measurable part. We want students to increase by 1,000. We want families to increase by 2,000. We want to increase our Spanish speaking participants by 100. Okay. So then this is where your strategy and your tactics come in. So what does that entail? You're doing emails, you're doing social media posts, you're asking some leaders in your organization. Sorry for the cough. Hold on. To send out the survey. You wanted to reach Spanish speakers, so you're creating Spanish language videos and flyers, right? So these are some of the tactics and strategies you'll come up with. And then how will we measure our success? Well, at the end of implementing all of this over a period of time, student participation was up by 800. So we didn't meet our goal of 1,000, but family participation was up by 4,000. So we more than doubled our goal, right? So this is a very simplified way of how PR folks approach their work so that it's not just throwing out social media posts in a void. You're going to say, oh, well, on this social media post, we got, this many shares and this much engagement. So if you're not used to measuring your work now, just take a look at some of the social media posts that are out there. I hope this was helpful. The steps you need to take in terms of your job search, as well as understanding a little bit more about the strategic nature of public relations. Before you go, I want you to come away with some of these key takeaways. And I think you can come back to this when your job search is frustrating or you feel imposter syndrome because you're just starting out in this new role, and really give yourself some grace. Bottom line, it is not your job to make everyone happy and know everything all at once. You, as a human being on a career journey, are allowed to be constantly learning, reinventing yourself. While being a journalist has defined you right now, it's not the end all and be all of who you are and who you were meant to be. When you come into a new role, you may be viewed as an outsider in some industries, and that is okay because I want you to remember that that's why you were hired. You were hired for your expertise in journalism, media relations, as well as your other content creation skills. Do not be disheartened. You will become an expert again. Just like when you were starting out as a journalist, you weren't an expert at news, but now you are, and you feel like, oh, I could do this in my sleep. It's okay to start over. You're not an expert, but you will learn quickly. That is what journalists do. And in no time, you will become an expert on the issues that you need to be. Your PR journey, your career journey may look different than others. And again, that's okay. That's why we have, our Facebook support group, which I'll share with you in a sec. And finally, this all takes time. Again, give yourself grace and go when you're ready on your timeline. But again, I don't want you to let the fear prevent you from taking that next step. So dream big, type in the chat, what would your ideal next job be? If you could make the career transition right now, type in the chat. We're manifesting here. What is your next step? What type of role would you want to transition into? We have some media relations specialists, awesome. Social media managers, okay, that's great. Awesome. So I want to ask you then, what's stopping you? Is it fear? Do you not know what the next steps are? But you do now because you took this webinar. You know what the steps are that you need to take. If it's a little help that you'd like, that's understandable because the current job market, it's frustrating. In my research and in my client's experience, it takes up to 5 to 6 months to land a job, some even longer. And there's an 8.3% chance of landing an interview from one job application. So that means, on average, 10 to 20 job applications submitted to land that one interview, and 10 or more interviews to land your first job offer. And I tell you this not to intimidate you or discourage you, but to give you some perspective that number one, persistence pays off, as you can see from the numbers. Number two, you need to do what you can to get a competitive advantage in this type of job market. You're already doing that by attending this webinar. So, what competitive advantages am I talking about? Somebody like me who's been through the journey, who coaches other people, I'm here for you for every stage of your career. Whether that's resume writing, when's the last time you touched your resume? Prepping for an interview, we can walk through what are the potential questions that the hiring manager might ask, and we can go through the types of questions and answers that you would want to give to make a good impression. I also have a master class and all-inclusive coaching where it's start to finish, I'm with you the whole way. I also do communications planning for those in PR roles currently. These are some client testimonials from people I've worked with, journalists just like you, who thought about it, weren't sure about their next steps, and I came alongside them and I was happy to help them because these stories are so meaningful to me because they took charge of the next step in their career, like you're doing right now, and they were able to get new jobs or get interviews for the first time. The coaching and interview and resume rewriting, all of these give you that competitive advantage in this competitive job market. So similar services, resume rewrites can cost $300 and up for a full resume rewrite. I am extremely conscious of journalists' budget, And so my cost to do a resume rewrite is $150. That QR code takes you to my services page. You can go there or you can refer to the link in an email I'll send as a follow-up. Normally, as a consultant, I charge $250 an hour. Uh, for interview prep, 60 minutes of Q&A, feeling super confident as you go into your interview is only $100. My clients tell me over and over again that this is a huge investment, not monetarily, but meaning that it's a huge payoff. I'll say this again and again. You do not need to pay $20,000 for a master's degree. You do not even need to pay $1,200 for a master's class with PRSA, Public Relations Society. Their recent Journalism to PR series cost $1,200, and I saw a lot of chatter about that was out of reach and unaffordable for journalists. My master class, very similar in-depth topics, $500 for 5 classes. And honestly, it's an investment, yes, but you will truly be able to combat some of that imposter syndrome going into this transition because you will quickly build your expertise and knowledge in all things PR, and that's $500. So again, these are my prices. Are you willing to take that investment in your career, ranging from $100 for interview prep, $150 for your resume rewrite, $500 for the master class, or $750 an all-inclusive. I'm there with you every step of the way, start to finish, with a few bonus things thrown in, which again are on my services page. I'm not asking any of you to make a decision or a commitment. I don't do that hard sell stuff. I just wanted to make you aware that these services are available if and when you are ready. That actually concludes this webinar. Please, please stay in touch. I love hearing about your success. You all have my email because I sent you the webinar link via that email, but it's christine.y.peck@gmail.com. If you're not already on my Instagram, it's at journalism2PR. That's a little more fun, lighthearted, bite-size tips and tricks as you're navigating this career change and challenge. And then I mentioned that supportive Facebook group. This is different from the TV News Women. This is the TV News to PR Facebook group, and it's actually a lot more former journalists who are now in PR. So we have that perspective, a lot of expertise, as opposed to current journalists who are career searching. So if you want to join there, it's a safe place. We can answer any questions alongside your journey. But I wanted to thank you once again for your time and investing this little bit of learning into your own career journey and your own career success. So thank you, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Bye-bye.